4 o'clock p.m. City Hall Council Chambers. As a point of order, all members are present, so roll call is not necessary. I'm looking for a volunteer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kara. I have one change to the agenda, but I'm looking to see if anybody else has any changes, additions, substitutions to the agenda.
I have an addition.
Please, Troy.
Just sharing information of upcoming tournaments for BBBA.
All right.
And field usage fees with the school district community.
Awesome. Is that something you feel like you can do at after the coordinator reports at the end? Okay.
Yeah, it won't take long. Katie, do you have to leave before the meeting's over?
No, we have our concession worker. I'm good.
Okay, perfect. Then no.
So I'm going to add reports or board reports or comments as item 11.5 or 11A. Anything else? We will also, so the change or alteration here is to add a Memorial Park update under the new business. We would like to do this first because we have Chris Sonmore in tow. Section number 8 will read as follows. 8A, Memorial Park update. B, request by property owner to place lending book. C, request to approve replacement of Memorial Park field sideline. D, request to approve Triangle Park, and E, request to name JC's Bronco Field. And any other additions or substitutions? With that, we'll look for a motion here.
Approve the agenda.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Schaefer and Rushmeyer. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We have an agenda.
Mr. Chair, could we make sure everyone has their mics on?
Mics, please.
I guess I'm on.
Consent calendar, item number 5, notice to the public, all matters listed are considered routine by the board and will be enacted upon one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion. This includes items 5A, approval of minutes, B, approval of disbursements, C, financial reports, D, approval of new hires, E, reports memo. No comments. We will look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
We have a motion by Boder and a second by Troy. Rushmeyer. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. This will bring us to item number 6. This is our presentations. So we would like to welcome CWE, Crow Wing Energized. Yep. I just want energized. I always get stumbled on it if it's energized or energized. We'd like to welcome Crow Wing Energized Tobacco-Free Parks presentation. Please, for the record, just state your name and your address for us, and the floor is yours. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, my name is Kelsey Stoltz. Unfortunately, I'm not a citizen of Brainerd, but Baxter, so I apologize. 11859 Joshua Tree Drive in Baxter. So I think you guys all had this in your packet, but in case you didn't have a chance, I thought we could just go through it pretty quickly. If you have any questions, feel free. I'd like for this to stay conversational if we can. So I'm going to go through it pretty quickly because this kind of outlines everything about what a tobacco-free park would look like. And then we can go into some questions and answers if that works. So in this packet, you'll kind of see tobacco-free parks have been around for a long time, the policy, and it's across the state. This is from 2016, so I feel like the number is probably much higher than what the document says, but at least 178 cities and or counties in Minnesota have become tobacco-free parks. If you'll look at page 5 in the document, it also shows that Brainerd is one of those listed as a tobacco-free park. So right now the policy, my understanding, is within 100 feet of any youth activities, there's no tobacco nobody can use tobacco products. We're looking at potentially expanding that to be on any tobacco-free or any tobacco land, or, I'm sorry, any parks, and also making that e-cigarettes as far, and including e-cigarettes and not only tobacco products, traditional tobacco products. So there is some commonly asked questions that you'll see in the document about enforcement, what that looks like. I know that's one of the things that we commonly have people asking questions about. If you look at what Minnesota park directors say, they do say that as long as there is signage and a policy, most people don't have any compliance issues, and that they recognize that becoming tobacco-free is beneficial for a couple of reasons. Not only is it good role modeling for our youth that are using our parks, it also cuts down on litter. So, there's nothing worse than being out at a park and seeing kids playing in the sand, and then there's tobacco butts laying on the ground. As far as that litter, it makes up 38% of all the litter that you'll see in any city or county land, and it takes anywhere from 18 months to 10 years for that to degrade down. So nothing that's beneficial for us to have out at our parks where our youth are playing. They did do some surveys in the cities, and then this information's included in this PDF as well, that talks about what the public perception was. Most of the public did recognize that it was a benefit because of what you're going to see around the exposure to secondhand smoking, the littering as an issue, and also that healthy role modeling. So there's some information in here that talks about, surveys that were done, the negative health impacts of second-degree smoke. So on page 12 is where it goes into that study that was done in the cities. There's a lot of questions about the difference in e-cigarettes as traditional tobacco products. So if you have any of those questions, it also talks about all of those things in this document as well. I'm happy to answer or field any of those questions too. Tobacco-free policies, there's a lot of, in conjunction with the Public Health Law Center, there's already a lot of these outlines of what a tobacco-free policy would look like. So you're not having to make up any new language. You can just use what's already out there. And then the Tobacco Law Center, the Public Health Law Center is really good at working and making sure that all of the language is updated. You don't want to have to be doing a new policy every couple of years, so making sure that it's generalized enough that it's going to still make sense in 10 years. Because that's one thing that we noticed 20 years ago. We had no idea that e-cigarettes were going to be a thing, and a lot of communities are having to update their policies to include e-cigarettes. I know another question that I've heard from people are, what is the cost involved for signage? So I did call today for the ANSR, which is the Association for Non-Smokers in Minnesota. They have free signage. It's just metal signage that has everything that you would need on it for a policy, that you can get as many as you would need for them to put up. I did ask if there was any restrictions on how many you could have, and they said as long as it's within reason that they'll provide that for free. And then if you do decide to go this route, there are a lot of resources too on what marketing rollout would be and what it looks like to make sure that the work is being shared, and making sure that the community is aware of what a policy entails. So I'd be happy to share that too if you decide to move forward. Questions?
Any questions? All right, very good. Continuing on, very good. You good?
Okay. Yeah, I kind of went through it fast because I thought maybe
Nope,
there
we're
would be
good.
questions.
Nope.
All right. So, yeah, I think that, there's obviously benefits that you're going to see with the youth, but one thing that we also, when I was researching what it would look like, you notice that as far as the compliance issue, most people that are smokers are going to be looking for those signage. If the signage is up, usually they're not going to be smoking while the signage is there. You're always going to have issues of people still doing things even though it's a policy that states otherwise. And then that goes into an issue of if you guys would be interested in a policy or an ordinance. And an ordinance does mean that there could be additional enforcement with fines attached. So there's some, if you guys have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer that too. Policy is much easier to pass than an ordinance, but both of them have value.
Understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to turn this back to you, Katie. Just kind of walk us through the high points here. What we might be missing, what you feel like your recommendation might be, and just kind of walk us through, especially some of the differences between policy and ordinance and some of that side. So at this time, take it away, Katie. Thank you.
Okay, so the idea behind all of this, what it also was kind of brought to fruition when we had the CLC students clean up around our parks, and they noted that, you know, there were a lot of cigarette butts in like our playgrounds. Children were picking them up and stuff. So that was one of the highlighted items. And so then I started thinking, okay, maybe we're going through the vision process of our parks. Is this going to be a part of that vision, how we see our parks changing or updating in the future? So it's something that I felt we needed to discuss as a board on the future of our parks, what we feel is reasonable for our parks, or how do we want to promote use of our parks. So what I'm recommending, or what staff is recommending to the park board, is to have staff come up with sample verbiage for whichever one you would like. Policy is a little more through the park board. That would be something that the park board would approve, but ordinance is a little more complicated. It has to go through city council. There's public hearing. And then there might be potentially a fine associated with it that the police officers would, like if they were called, they would actually be able to come and enforce it, versus policy is more staff would say, can you please stop smoking in our parks? It's a little bit different. So something to discuss. Kelsey, did you have any other details that you found, the differences between the policy and the ordinance?
No, I think one thing that is nice to see is if you do look through the packet, it talked about how that was one of the main issues that a lot of park directors were concerned about, was the enforcement, but that once they were surveyed after they had went tobacco-free parks, that they didn't feel like it was an issue with compliance, that most people, as long as the signage was visible, as long as there was a good campaign to make sure people were aware, and that can be through posting the actual policy somewhere in the park. Another strategy is at games having some of the coaches give those out to parents or something. So as long as there's an awareness campaign and that there's enough signage, that they didn't feel like compliance was a big issue. I think it was something like 76% or so.
Understood. All right. Mr. Sandy, please.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of the conversation that we've had just internally is how far do you guys, if you guys want to take this somewhere, how far do you want to take it? Because a policy is kind of like the first move, getting an updated policy. And if you guys want to have that enforcement mechanism where it actually is a law of the city, then we would need to move it forward to a council and then bring in Mike Bestel and figure out what the best way to enforce an ordinance like this is. If we do, the thing that, as Kelsey kind of stated, that we worry about is if we get a complaint about somebody smoking, what's our repercussions? Is it just telling them, hey, our policy is tobacco-free parks? If they say, well, it's just a policy and this is a public space, I can do whatever I want here, how far do we take that? And that's a discussion I think you guys need to have, because that ordinance gives us the backbone.
Right.
A policy gives staff something to fall back on to tell someone, but we don't have that necessarily the hammer.
And there would be no reason that there would be nothing preventing us from, for instance, taking a progressive approach to this, in that you could look at it as a policy first, see how it goes, and then if we do have some complaint-driven issues and some items that come up, then potentially down the road look at it as an ordinance. So it could have a progressive aspect as well, Mr. Sandy. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, and that's probably the best route to take is you do a policy, you update the one we already have, and then from there if that's the way you guys want to go, then we see what kind of issues there are, and if there are issues with enforcement, then it's something that the park board could look at recommending to the council that they actually adopt an ordinance where there would be steeper repercussions for violating.
Great. Anything else that we should know before we start talking about this?
I don't think so, so.
Very good. I'm going to open it up to the board here for open discussion on this. Are there any questions for our presenter or for our city staff? Yeah, Mr. Rushmeyer, please.
I always go first.
Oh, you want me to go first? Okay. I would like to see it at adult, like all park things. I mean, in our old policy, it only states youth practices and games. So I don't know how people think, what people think about that. And obviously, like Tim, you might, you guys would know more about how would adults handle us telling them they couldn't smoke at a softball game. I don't know if that's a normal part of they have a cigarette in their mouth when they're out there. How would that look? But because even at a playground, you know, there's kids. That's not in our old policy. So I'd like to see that updated or see what you guys think about that. I'm adding more questions, but.
I think what you say is valid.
Troy.
I have several things. I read through this, and I, for one, am a former smoker who've used the parks. And one, I guess I kind of look at, here's what I would like to see. I would like to see the same thing that we do for our youth activities, similar to what you just said, is playgrounds, the same criteria as youth rec activities. No smoking within 100 feet, maybe any permanent structures. But some things I think we really need to consider is, one, people have gotten crazy in the last year. And the last thing I would like to see is somebody sitting on a bench and somebody walk by them and go bonkers on them and YouTube video and, you know, you're smoking. You know, people in the last year are crazy. And you know, I think we've always been crazy, but it's just coming out more. And so, and the other part of it is for me is, I don't smoke, so I really don't care. I don't like the smell of smoke anymore, most of the time, unless maybe I've had a couple drinks, but I don't have that many drinks, so I'm okay. But what I'm trying to say is part of this too is we have to think about, there's also rights involved. People should have rights to do certain things. And where do we stop it? You know, it goes to this and then it goes to that and it goes to that, and pretty soon, you know, we can't do anything. And I know that probably sounds silly, but I think we have to think that way sometimes too, because you know, where we worship, if we worship, or if we're involved in any religious activities, you know, where we can smoke. And I get that. You know, not smoking inside, perfect. Smoking outside, secondhand smoke. If somebody's standing in the middle of the park and there's no one around them, I don't really see what it's hurting. It would be nice if people would be more aware of what they do with their cigarettes after they smoke them. Even when I was a coach for a lot of years, I smoked. I never once smoked in front of my kids. I never smoked in the park. And so the other thing I'm thinking of is single moms, single dads, maybe don't have access to a vehicle and there's a park. Do they not go to that park because they can't smoke there? Oh, so do they just stay home then? Or do something that's maybe not as good for their kid? And I'm just thinking of, I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate here is, so as far as going, you know, right to an ordinance, I think that would be crazy. If we want to change policy, I think, as you mentioned and you had mentioned, I think that's not a bad way to go. And then I think of the softball fields, Monday through Friday, how much feedback are you going to get, and are you going to have people getting after each other down there, and next thing you know, a few beers, someone's fighting because they're arguing about smoking or not smoking, and you know, I understand the reason, and I get it. It's for the health of kids, you know, kids doing vaping. I get all that. I get all the reasoning. But I also think we have to really consciously look at the other aspects of this, and that is people's rights also. And so I'll get off my soapbox and leave it at that.
Thanks, Troy. Yeah, please, Tim.
I'll add a couple things as well. Troy was talking about the softball fields and baseball fields, whatever. Even at the youth games, you see parents walk over behind the hockey rink, so to speak, or whatever, and just get away from the people and smoke. So, yeah, I almost hate to take that away. But also, if we put in some sort of a policy, is that going to be, if someone rents a park, rents a pavilion, rents a softball complex, rents Mill Avenue Field, whatever it might be, we're going to have to use that as well as Lum Park Campground. We have to cut off all smoking for the campground for all the adults that are staying there for the weekend. You know, so they're outside, they're adults. I understand the youth thing more than anything. Obviously, anything. Like Troy, I'm a former smoker as well, but I don't miss it. I don't really care. I don't care if people are smoking. But even at my racetrack, I ran into a bunch of legal issues when we have a section in our racetrack where there was no smoking, and that worked great when it was a normal Saturday night race. But if we had a large-scale event and it was reserved seating, I had so many people complaining because we had, they had to buy their seat to be in that certain position. And then they would say, well, if this dude's four people down from me, you can't be smoking. I paid for this seat, but so did he. Even though it was in the no smoking section, but that's just how it works out. But because it's open to the general public, but you bought a specific rental seat or reserved seat. I heard a lot of, they're race fans. They complain about everything anyway, so. But you get kind of used to it. But my point is, youth stuff, I 100% agree. Adults, it's going to be really tough if you're going to do a policy. And if you're going to do a policy, how strict are you going to keep it?
Thanks, Tim. I have a question. Do you know of examples where you have partial policy in place?
I don't. So most of the policies that I know of that are recommended is all of the park property is being a part of, because then you do get into other issues of what is considered safe at a smoking distance for secondhand smoke, what is safe for, as far as staffing time, like having to pick up, you're opening yourself up for potential questions of why here but not here, or why here and not here. And I think what the recommendation or the best practices is just all of the park's property. But I can definitely research and look into. So one thing that I'm very fortunate to have is through my job, we have technical assistance through larger organizations that focus in this. So we have a working partnership with the American Lung Association, which does a lot of this work. So I could definitely.
Those free signs are fantastic. I think use what you can for free. Why not?
All right, very good. So everyone has had a chance to speak. What would you ideally like to see here for, do we want a motion? Do we want to,
I think we need probably some time just to come back and figure out if we can write or figure out what a policy would be revolved around just youth activities to see if we can find examples of that and bring it back at the next meeting and then,
make a decision from there?
Yeah, and see, I was reading through this policy and the policy is very gray because it says strongly discourages. It doesn't really say that you can't. It just says strongly discourages. So there's some very gray area there too. So I think we need to do I don't think we need anything tonight. I think we'll just keep working on it and bring something back at the next meeting for you guys to look at as far as a sample policy that, and then get some feedback and then work on it one more time and finalize it based on your feedback at the next meeting.
Yeah, I definitely think this is something within our wheelhouse of which to craft something. Mr. Bedell, please.
Yeah, I think that approach will work from the council side of things too. If you wanted to take it forward with some kind of ordinance, you would probably find support for specific locations or areas, probably not for an all-encompassing. But that seems like a good approach.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please, Carol.
So if you look at the Plymouth, Minnesota Parks and Rec policy, the first thing does say tobacco product use in the proximity of children, youth, and adults engaging in watching recreational, but so it doesn't mean the whole thing. So that's something you guys, so it could be within 100 feet still. They can still go behind the hockey rink or wherever. Of course, that would be a little different with the adult softball players, but.
And the general tone of which I'm, sorry.
Yep,
The general tone of which I'm gathering is that this is a deterrent type mindset, not necessarily a law and enforcement type mindset, right? We've said already that policy seems to be working in most places, so if we're going to fashion something moving forward in any context, it seems like the mindset here is that, you know, some signs to deter people from doing it in certain areas and ask that just out of basic, you know, decency and respectfulness, that they can manage tobacco use within our parks, because, you know, certainly heard both sides here and could see it both ways. So, Katie, have we had any, that you can think of, any problems with complaints driven by smoking of park users next to non-park users, other than what you brought up regarding the cigarette butts? Softball
Regarding
games,
cigarette
youth
butts?
games?
Well, cigarette butts get into our ballpark mix all the time, you know, so it's not ideal. But I would say, as far as smoking at the parks, I've definitely received complaints at youth games, and I've had to ask people to move, and they always respectively did. I know, like, people will smoke near our concession stand, and that's not ideal either. It's getting blown into our concession workers' face. But I definitely see both sides. And I also agree with what you said, Kevin, stating, like, it's more of a deterrent. I don't think we're looking to kick people out. It's more of a vision of potentially down the road we'll have cleaner parks. People might smoke less. They might be more respectful. I agree.
So the consensus that I'm hearing here basically is that we'd like to ask the city staff to kind of fashion some part of a partial policy for us to at least review.
Yeah, and I would
Is that
say I
right,
would
Troy?
focus on, in particular, the playground areas, especially, you know, cigarette butts. Kids are gonna pick them up, put them in their mouth. Plus, it's gotta be hard to clean around a playground area with all of that material. You know, at least out in the grass, seeded areas, you're mowing, you know, they'll get destroyed, damaged somewhat, and/or, you know, over time they'll be mulched, if you will. But to me, it almost seems like if you want to start somewhere, the playground areas might be the best place to draft something up, unless someone else thinks otherwise. But
Good with that?
I think we could also include potentially a strategic placement of cigarette butt receptacles, potentially, you know, like, don't have them next to the playground or, you know, near the entrances or something, so they're getting rid of it before they enter. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to just wrap up and say thanks to Crowing Energize for bringing this forward. Kelsey, for your, this is awesome forward-thinking mindset, and it's good for us to be talking and thinking about this kind of stuff.
Not that it matters in my vote, but what does your city do?
What's my vote?
No, what does Baxter do? Do you have any idea what they're?
I think Baxter's similar, actually. I think that they're listed the same within 100 feet of any youth activity. But if you guys are interested in hearing what other cities in Crow Wing County do, that might be helpful.
3102, looks like Baxter. It looks like we would be the first town in the last 5 years to jump on. Last one was 2016, maybe, according to the list.
And I think it was updated in 2016, so that's probably old.
Very good.
see, I'd rather wait till the very last.
No,
Maybe the last.
Because we'll get a lot more publicity that way.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you guys want to be the
More incentive,
first.
because they're gonna have all these signs left over.
You guys want to be first.
Continuing on, anybody else have anything to add? All right, continuing on.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your time.
Appreciate it.
And with that, we are going to move on to unfinished business. This is a request to approve the dog park pavilion design, and I'm not going to recuse myself on this just because I drew it. I'm just trying to help out. So, Mr. Sandy, take it away. And again, no ego attached to this drawing.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight in front of you, you have the design that Kevin drew up for the Buster Park shelter. It pretty much resembles our other pavilions, just in a square model. He has a steel roof shown, but upon consultation between Kevin and I think that we're going to have to go shingles if we want to stay underneath our budget potentially. In that case, we would go with the same color that we kind of decided at the last meeting. Really just looking for comments or approval of what Kevin is showing here. So I don't have a whole lot else.
Mr. Rushmeyer.
First of all, I'd like to find someone else to design this thing. crazy.
I second that.
It looks great. I think it looks exactly about what we talked about at our last meeting. I'm just wondering, with this being smaller, how much difference is the steel roof versus the shingles? Do we know that?
No, I guess
If
we
we're
would,
talking $500 or something, $1,000, you know, is that something then that we want to look and say, let's move forward with the steel roof? But to me, that's a valid, I would like to know that before we move forward. I think the design looks great. It's, the dollars would be happy.
Keep in mind, guys, that this is the revised version with no concrete slab, so this would have to have a pea gravel base or something like that. It's just on posts, so.
and you know, like I said, Mr. Chair, if I may, a budget is a
please.
budget. That $7,000 number, you know, in all of our departments, you know, there's, that number is at the beginning of the year, and we go over and under on certain items, and so, you know, the finance director says that budget number, you can throw that out at the beginning of the year. So, I mean, it's.
Thank you, Connie.
So, I mean, we can price it out and see what it comes to, and if there's not that much of a difference, I would concur that the metal roof would be the way to go if it's similar, you know.
Yeah, please, Kara.
Is there 4 benches in there? Is that like around, or I can't really,
The building's 14 by 14, so you have basically 28 lineal feet of benches. The benches take up 2 complete sides for an L shape.
okay. Oh, I see that. Okay, sorry, right there, yep. And then, we don't have a concrete slab? We said no to that? Okay. Or-
Part of the dialogue of the last meeting was to just look at putting it on post so that we could have some version of a pervious base,
Okay,
which makes good sense. The concrete alone would eat up $1,200 probably, so.
okay.
And probably have some maintenance with the critters running amok. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. So you're just looking for a go-ahead to move forward with this as the design to begin the pricing or the moving ahead, Paul, or at this time, any revisions that we want to make? Design standards would be in play here, I'm assuming, as we move along.
I would make a motion to approve the design and to move forward with procuring materials, just with that additional checking on the roof, metal versus shingles.
All right, we got a motion in place by Mr. Rushmeyer.
Is there a dollar amount that we can differentiate between the shingles and the steel roof?
You're not looking at building this thing in the next month, are you? Okay, so we could probably ask for feedback on that before we make a final decision on that.
I would second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Paul. All right, item number 8A. This is our Memorial Park update. I see Mr. Sandmore in tow here. Thank you very much. I'm going to have Mr. Sandy set that up for us, if you will, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight in front of you, you have 3 documents. One is a memo from Chris to me, just kind of giving us an overall broad overview of what's happened over the past, basically since the project has started at the Memorial Park site. You also see a change order in front of you. That was approved at the last meeting to add alternate 1 onto the project, which is the construction of the small rink without the boards or lights. So that was just informational. And then the last one is in the bills tonight, getting paid. That's pay voucher 1 for the project. Total amount due to date is about little over $79,000, so we're about 8% complete with the project. And I'll let Chris go into the details.
Yeah, so I'll start with kind of just a summary here. You know, I kind of laid out what's been done. This was submitted last week, so we had our construction meeting this morning. You know, the building's coming out of the ground. They should have it backfilled in the next day or so here, and starting on some of the underground plumbing work and the site utilities. Some of that stuff will start here in probably the next week or so. So it's moving along. I guess I did want to mention too in there, I had this in the memo, but as far as the water main out there, what we were anticipating was a bigger line going into Mills Field that fed that to tie into. That turned out to be a smaller line. So we did end up, we're tying in further down to the south, kind of by, almost down to Q Street there, so we could get behind the valve where it's actually, they winterize it, so otherwise we wouldn't hit water even all winter there. So there will be a slight change coming on that here next month. And then moving into the pay voucher here, really all it was for this month was just some of the stripping, the dirt work, and just a partial, I think it was 12% of the building so far for, it was just some of the foundation work that they had done here last week. So, you know, that is a bulk of what is on the pay app here. Typical contracts like this will hold 5% retainage, just kind of, it basically leverage at the end to get them to finish up the punch list items, and upon final sign off by us and Paul and you know, park board, then that gets released at the end of the project. So, but other than that, I don't have any issues with what they're requesting payment for, and I would recommend approval.
Any questions for anyone here? I have a quick question. So the $16,000, is that for the difference between the 3-inch to 4-inch? Because it sounds like there's a distance change here as well.
It's mostly to do with two things. It's the distance and then the dewatering up here. That's always a pain here when things move in utilities, because it's, you know, the dewatering cost is significant. So it's a bulk of it is the footage and the dewatering on this one.
And a follow-up question for me on this is this $16,000, would this be typically something that would come out of the contingency, or would this be paid for mechanically some other way?
Contingency, typically.
Okay. I have no other questions. You're not really looking for a motion here at all, or?
No, it's in the bills tonight.
We've already
so
signed
really-
off on them, so.
Yep, the bills were paid, so that's part of that, so.
Very good. When are the construction meetings, just, when do those happen?
They're every other Tuesday
Every
for
other-
right now, at 10 o'clock. So we had one this morning, so yeah, 2 weeks again, we'll be having the next one. And
They might move to weekly at some point based on how much work is getting done.
yeah, it's gonna be kind of as needed as far as what's going on out there, and how many questions are. I kind of, you know, left it open to the contractor. If they want to go more, we're willing to do more. But, you know, so far it's mostly just getting out of the ground. So there's not, you know, I don't think a big need right now until they get
Chris,
that
do
out
you
of
have
the
any
ground.
indications that the timeline seems to be swinging of anything of substance?
You know, I do have, you know, kind of Anderson Brothers' rough schedule here, and based off what they're talking this morning, the site work, you know, some of the utilities are going to start here in probably the next week, probably get into, you know, the beginning of June, somewhere in there, with the storm sewer, sanitary sewer line. Like I said, the foundation will be backfilled, if not today, probably tomorrow. They're going to get the plumbers in there, get their underground work in. The slab on the building should be poured next week, and they would probably start framing here that, you know, first week in June, most likely. So it should come pretty fast in the next 3 weeks here. So I don't know if anybody's been by there lately,
Oh, yeah.
but
It's kind of fun.
It's fun to
So,
see it go up, yeah.
yeah.
I've been trying to get over there every other day or so. yeah.
But it'll change a lot faster now once they start framing. It goes a lot quicker from there. Right now, it's just kind of a hole in the ground with foundation, so. but
Very good.
It'll change a lot in the next month.
And what is your intent for these updates? How often do you intend to be here with us for these updates?
I guess I was planning to do it every month, if
Fantastic.
if that's enough, so I can certainly, if you wanted a memo more often than that, I'm certainly happy to do that too, but.
How do we feel about once a month?
Yeah, you know, unless things are going awry, I don't know why we would need any more than that.
Right.
Agreed.
Okay.
Kara, please.
Katie, how often are you over at the park? It might be kind of fun to do some social media,
Oh,
like share that on there and like updates, you know, doesn't have to be weekly or daily. I don't, when something cool, well, everything's cool, but you know, something people would be excited about, might be fun to update the public since
Yeah.
it is their money.
is there any problem with that?
Yeah,
Taking
can we do
pictures?
No, not at all. And I guess, I would encourage you to spread the word on that, but I would just maybe caution them too that it is a construction site and obviously there's
Don't go falling
safety
in a pit.
hazards out there. And like today.
Come on
point-
out, walk the site.
You know,
Tell them to come. Don't play in the big
Katie
pool.
called me last night in a panic. There was a pile of dirt blocking the driveway
Yeah,
into
right away.
the park when all the softball players were trying to get in there. We got to figure it out. But.
yeah, and after next week when that, the sewer line goes in, we shouldn't have any more impacts to the street or park, the parking lot there. We should be all off onto the park side and the green space. So there shouldn't be any more obstructions, unless we have, again, something comes up.
Very good. Troy?
I'd try to catch someone smoking, catch one of the
Oh.
construction workers smoking.
Correct.
And then get that on the.
I don't think you'll have to sit there too long.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. Anything else? All right, we're good. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Very much.
Moving on to
Walk by there.
item 8B, request by property owner to place a lending book library near Buffalo Hills Trail. This is, sorry, Mr. Sandy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this request came from Lauren Meinke. He actually lives at 1938 Graydon, but the folks that want to put this up live at 1934 Woodcrest, which are right next door. And really, all this is it's a lending library that would be placed right by the trail to have people leave books or take books at their will or leisure. I think we have one at Kiwanis that's kind of in disrepair that we're looking at probably taking out anyways or fixing. But this one, I guess staff doesn't see any problem with it. I just figured it's something I'd bring forward to you guys in case you get questions about what it is. Or if you guys absolutely don't want it, I can tell them that we would not like it there. But really it provides no, hindrance to our maintenance activities and just, making sure the resident is aware that it is their asset and we're not going to maintain it for them. So if it falls into disrepair or becomes a nuisance or something like that, that they either fix it or remove it at that time. So really it's just an authorization to allow them to do that, place it by the trail so that people see it and can use it at their leisure is all I'm looking for here.
Mr. Rushmeyer.
So they build it, they place it, they're responsible for it.
Yep, and it's just by the trail so people can see it.
So is it, I'm not sure how, people just come, grab a book, take it home, bring it back.
Take one, leave one.
Put it back in and.
That's, yeah.
They're popular. They're on private residences. We have them in our, well, for sure in Kiwanis.
Yep.
I know there's a couple even right on the street next to Gregory.
Yeah, the Holiday Station by Mill Avenue has one.
My issue with them is when they do fall into disrepair that we can get that person back to
Yep.
give them a little paint or
Right.
whatever they need.
So do we require that they coincide with all of our new park colors?
That was a good question. I brought that up also,
Oh, I was sort
actually.
of joking.
No, I actually brought it up. So now, thanks.
Okay,
No,
you were
that's good.
serious and I was
Yeah,
just thinking.
I was serious. You were joking.
Well, we don't want it to be like bright pink, so maybe there should be, some kind of, or some obnoxious color.
I don't think that's too much to ask.
Yeah, we
I
can
don't think
have
so
it.
either.
Okay,
We
yeah.
can just request that of them.
It's like the horseshoe pets. It's kind of
It
joking,
is.
but it's kind of.
I was kind of serious, but kind of joking. Yeah, so
You got what you need there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would.
oh, okay.
I'll make a motion to allow for the lending library, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's what they called it, I guess.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Rushmeyer.
I will second that, but can we say that it does have to be within some colors?
Chartreuse.
Yes, chartreuse. I don't know.
You would like to add an addition to, would you like Mr. Rushmeyer to amend his motion to include that the basic design of it and colors should match our new coming design standards?
So amended.
There we go.
At least the colors. Doesn't have to be the design. It has to have a metal roof on it.
Very good. So we do have a motion and a completed second. So any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. There we go. Thank you. All right, this is item 8C, request to approve replacement of Memorial Park Field sideline fences and select backstops. Mr. Sandy, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, some of the park surveys that we got reference the bowing nature of some of the sideline fences we have on fields 1 and 2, and they are our oldest fences. They're the 8-foot high ones that run on the sidelines of fields 1 and 2, and then also to look at the backstop wings on fields 2 and 3. We did solicit some quotes. I had one in the packet. Upon Mr. Yeager's great idea, we went and got another one, which was in fact a very good idea, because you can see the one in front of you tonight from Elite Fence and Deck is substantially cheaper than what Oberg had given us for a price. Staff did some looking at what our park dedication fund is from our banner sales on those fields, and we have a little over 18,000, I think, in that fund right now for Memorial Park fields, and we feel that this is a good use of those funds to get those fence fabric replaced between the fields and on those backstops that are in disrepair. I know Katie received quite a few comments from some of the softball players too about the bowed nature of those and balls sliding underneath them and just the look. So staff is just recommending that we approve the quote from Elite Fence for that work, and they can get going on that right away.
Well, you heard it, folks. Any questions? Yeah, Troy.
Are we talking just between the two fields, 1 and 2, not along third and first baseline for both fields? The short fence, right? That's not in this quote.
It's the 8-foot high fence between 1 and 2 where that walkway is, where they're the real tall ones where they're bowing out on the bottom. And then the 2 backstops, the bottom halves of the backstops on 2 and 3, including the backstop and wings, with a heavier gauge fence. It's a 6 gauge.
Do those fences, I forget, but I remember walking those fields last year when we did our park surveys. And I believe, especially on the far north field along third baseline, that is in really rough shape too, is it not? We get a lot of balls that go underneath that fence or not? What I notice is when you compare that versus the outfield has the bar at the bottom that it attaches to, and I think some of that was addressed where they just can't get it to stay on there. I would think there's gotta be something, but anyway, where there isn't that bar, it to me looked significantly worse, but does this quote include having that bar there?
It doesn't, but did Troy say that there was a bar on all those? I didn't look specifically, but I can't remember if there was a bottom bar on the bottom.
Not on
The tall fence.
the tall fence.
So, I mean, we could ask them to revise that if that's something that we want to do, because it does help having that tie down at the bottom. They're all going to do that at some point from what they've said, but the bottom bar does help keep it.
But maybe as we see them breaking, I mean, it's a piece of wire that we could go back in and reattach with if we, you know what I mean? Stay on top of it versus letting them all break and then, and then we got the curvature and, yeah, so I was just curious if that included the 2 shorter fences on the side as well, but.
I'm not aware of what
I thought
fences
the
you're
third
talking about.
baseline on the north field was in really rough shape also at the bottom, at least right around third base in that general area. I thought that was really bowed up quite bad as well, but.
Well, I mean, if we do this one, we can look at that when we're out there and see if it's a little bit extra, we can tack it on. I mean,
I'm sure to do that whole fence line would be expensive. So, I mean, it's nice just hearing that we're repairing, the one, and, maybe it has to be done in a different year, and that, I was just curious, I just wanted to verify that wasn't included in this quote. It doesn't sound like it is, so.
I'm trying to remember, was it what Oberg just did 4 or 5 years ago, some fencing out there for us, right?
Yes. Outfield fencing.
It was just the outfield?
And the
Okay.
backstop.
It was the home run fence, wasn't it?
Yes.
Which looked really good last year when I walked around, and I thought that still looked in great shape, but. But I think that also has the bottom pipe on it, does it not? I'm almost sure.
I saw that today, yeah, that stuff does.
Sorry, Dave, didn't see you.
I just raised my hand. What was our banner sales for those fields this year? So we have a
Well,
dollar
we did
amount.
carry over all of our banners from last year, so that's why they're very full. I don't know off the top of my head how much.
Couple thousand or?
Yeah,
Those banners and those yellow safety barriers look phenomenal out there, I believe.
It looks nice.
Yep.
It looks really nice.
It looks like they all belong out there.
Like a nice thriving ballpark. We got a bid that's good for 5 days, so staff is recommending that we authorize this if we want to move forward, so.
Are we looking at this one now?
Yep.
It's the Oberg,
Yeah.
or excuse me, Elite.
Elite, yeah.
I will make a motion to approve this new, the Elite fence and deck.
All right, we got a motion by Ms. Schaefer
Second?
and a second by Mr. Boder. Any discussion?
I just want to make sure that the quotes are apples to apples. I mean,
They
that's
are,
the
yep,
exact
I
same.
made sure, yep.
Okay.
Very good. We got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Fence carries. Thank you for the work.
Yeah, no kidding.
Item number 8D is the request to approve the Triangle Park Playground design. This is Mr. Sandy. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in front of you tonight, you see two different, it's in the large packet of materials. There's two different designs that we've gotten from the playground supplier that supplied our Meadows Playground here 2 years ago. The first one, I think, is on page 62 of your packet. Is more of a rendering picture. And then the second one is on page 75. So I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to look at those. Those are the two that they provided us, and they're right basically with the border material and the wood fiber for the ground. They provided us an estimate for that too, and they're right at our $30,000 budget. So that's basically what we can get for that $30,000 number that we had in the budget for 2021. With those two designs. So looking for some feedback, any kind of, if you guys had something else in mind. They did say that we might be able to save some money on the shipping up here. I think someone up here is getting a playground. I think it might be a Teen Challenge, and they could ship this up on the same truck. And so we could save potentially half of the cost of the shipping, which would be a little bit of a savings, right around $1,500. But just looking for any feedback you guys have with those two designs, if any, or approving one or the other, I guess, if you so choose. So.
All right. A vast improvement for Triangle Park. I don't know how old the playground equipment is that's there, but this will be a hugely needed improvement.
Well, I apologize for somewhat outstepping the boundary. And I have a brain injury, so sometimes I forget it, or maybe I was even gone. But what happened with the Northtown playground?
It's still there.
But it's, is it completed, or is it, okay? But, I thought weren't the people looking for more updates to it?
Basketball court's been talked about, Mr.
Yeah, we have a request for not necessarily a full court, but a hoop and slab of some sort. But I think that's the only thing that I've heard.
And this will, just as a teaser, come up in some of the budget talks that are coming up, the basketball court, which we're going to talk about a little bit as we get a little further along.
I am teased, thank you.
Tim. All right, who wants to dive in here and say which one they like better? I'm going to go with 62 or 63, right? Page 62 or 63?
62 or 75.
Hang on. Oh, 62. Oh, yeah, there we go. 62 or 75. All right, Kara, please. Brave soul.
I like number 75. It has 2 slides. And it also has that other little fun, I don't have kids. I just think 2 slides would be great because then the little kids can play on the little side and they also can swing in like the little kid swings. And they can try to balance and swing themselves around those bars. There's 3 levels of bars. And then I'm not sure, again, what that squiggly thing is, but it looks like it's a lot of fun. And then the big kids can be there too, go down the big side, swinging on the big swings, going across that fun monkey bar thing, and also, I don't know. So that's my, but they're both cool.
All right, who's next?
Well, Mr. President, you live, roughly a half a block or so from there, so maybe which one are you gonna be using?
I'm 100% neutral on either of these, so I will go with number 75 as well. I think that whatever we do here when we create the form of the border needs to roughly replicate the shape of the park versus the very irregular pattern that we've had in the past. So I know these are rendered with square parks or square borders. That very well may work, but I'm assuming we'll get that all sorted out with our design standards. So I love number 75.
Cool.
But I am 100% neutral, so I could easily be swayed. Troy, please.
Well, just for the sake of being different, I like the other one better. Just kidding. I too don't really care.
But
I really don't care, but it looks like they're wheelchair accessible, correct? What is somebody that is handicapped, how are they gonna get in there? How are they gonna get past the border?
Don't know. Probably a question
With
for
their wheelchair.
Widseth, if with the ADA, with our ADA accessibility stuff.
Do you have like a little doorway?
It's certain types of mulch, I know it's certain types of bedding material and a certain type of approach and,
Yep, there needs to be like some sort of cutout that is different from the border material, along with a firm and stable is what ADA like designates base, and that's what most of this engineered wood is considered firm and stable for purposes of ADA. So we'll have to look at an entrance that is what would be ADA accessible on a playground, but I'm sure it's something we can take care of very easily.
Okay. And then my second question is, there's 2 borders for the swing set and for the playground set. Can we place these in a way that it all runs together and we pay less for borders?
Oh, for sure, yeah. The border is just a number put in there so that we made sure we took that into account, because when these playgrounds were budgeted for before, there was no thought about putting the border or the material in, and it was always an overrun of price. And so we made sure that when the supplier bid this out, that we said, put in a conservative number for a border and for the wood fiber, so that we know that we're gonna be around our budget number, instead of spending $30,000 just on the playground and then having $5,000 of border and so the border and mulch really isn't designed per se. We can make that look however we want.
yeah, and I was a little confused. The St. Croix Recreation piece has the number in there but then behind it, a note that says installed and supplied by the city.
Yep,
So,
that is something we do
okay, got it.
for them, yeah.
And I kind of struggle with this one, the one diagram, page 55, 54, showing the 3 wheelchair emblems around that playground equipment. What do they do when they get to that point? What can they do there? Just
Don't know.
pull up to it?
Oh, right. And then maybe they can climb out and climb up there?
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, is that all it needs to be, is just so that they can access that and then?
I can bring like the actual ADA playground. There is like a separate portion for ADA accessible playgrounds, and it probably gives some good explanations if it's just an FYI item at the next meeting, but
It says on there, elevated play event accessible by a transfer system.
it's like a transferring spot where you could get out of a wheelchair and and use the equipment.
It says there's 3 provided.
Well, all 3 sides of that platform
Right.
is what
Right.
it's,
Mhm.
is what that means. But it almost seems like a tease to me. Maybe just for lack of knowledge, probably.
All right, Tim. What do you think? 75 or what is it? 50? 65 or
62 or
62 or 75?
I'm a 3/4 guy instead of a half, so I'll go 75.
Okay. Looks like we have a consensus of the group here. It is option 2. And
Mr.
you're looking for a
Chair,
motion here, correct?
Yeah, and if we want, I can bring some information back on what constitutes an ADA accessible playground and just have a little FYI in the next meeting so that we're more aware of what that entails. I know there's a whole separate section of ADA that I'm not very privy to because I'm used to dealing with sidewalks and streets and ADA in the public right of way and not necessarily a playground. So this is a little new to me too, so.
Yeah, it's, there's a lot of factors to
There's a
consider.
whole nother
here.
realm of ADA
because
that
the
comes
entire Triangle Park is surrounded by curb
Yeah.
with no roll-up, so we don't, it's levels of getting to that place. You can see here that this is that platform, Troy. With
Yeah,
the
I-
3
I
handles
see,
on it,
yeah.
so you can,
I just was
Yep.
wondering, then,
but we're going the right direction.
what do
It's
they
a-
do?
Yeah, yep,
Oh, yeah, that's what those are for.
yeah,
Oh,
to
that's
grab a
cool.
hold of so you can get on there, I think, yeah. But we're going the right direction here for sure, I think.
So do we need to consider though what you just said about the curbs? So would that be more money for the, like, we need to
Well-
maybe add that in to make the curbs so that,
I think
Do
we
you have a
pass that
ramp?
on to city council. That's coming off the street.
Or if we know anyone in the streets department. But
ADA,
the point I was making is that ADA compliance, ripples
Yes.
out
It's
away from, even far away from.
It's a
just
very,
equipment.
very slow process.
Right.
We have an ADA transition plan that basically states that we'll make ADA compliant improvements as we do improvements adjacent to it. So when we do a street, we're making sure our sidewalks are ADA compliant and our curb ramps, because a lot of our funding requires that things are ADA compliant. So really, 1992 ADA came about and said that you have to have a plan on addressing ADA issues within the public right-of-way. And when, basically, all the plan has to say is that you'll address ADA as you do other, like, street projects. So when I'm doing Laurel Street, we're gonna replace all the pedestrian ramps to make sure they're ADA compliant. Or if we're doing Bluff Avenue, we're gonna make sure that there's ADA ramp going into Triangle Park for that, so. Or if something the park board wants to do, we can certainly plan for an ADA ramp into the park in the future and sidewalks or some sort of sidewalk into the park. So it's more of a budgeting thing than anything.
And just to be clear, the renderings are the actual colors, right? They're not just, okay, very good.
Cool colors.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I would make a motion that we approve Burke's, I believe it's Burke,
We're going with number 75.
number 75 plan for Triangle Park.
Very good. We got a motion by Mr. Boder,
second that?
second by Ms. Schaefer. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Number 75 it is. Mr. Sandy. All right, item 8E, we're getting there, we're almost there. Request to name J.C.'s Bronco Field Jonesy Field. Is this you, Mr. Sandy?
I'm gonna let Troy probably take the most of this.
We're gonna pass the baton right away to Troy.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's fine. I brought up at the last park board meeting, somebody had come to me with this. And I think rightfully so. Jonesy has, I think he's umped every, adult softball, youth baseball, high school, middle school, in this community and in some other nearby communities. He has been, before his health started to deteriorate, he was really looked up to by the young kids that played. And he really made it fun for them. He was loud, he made it fun for fans, just because they always knew balls there were, how many strikes there were, why he called something a certain way he called it. He just did a phenomenal job. So much so that when he did tournaments here in town, teams from other communities invited him to Cooperstown to ump. Each team was able to bring an ump, and they basically paid his way to go there. He has multiple medals from Cooperstown and different things, and he poured his heart into it. And unfortunately, the last couple years, his health has declined. I'm not going to say what, but it's just been a real struggle for him. And I just don't see him coming back to do it. And I think he's poured a lot of blood and sweat into what he's done here, and I just think it would be fitting for a field to be named after him. I think he doesn't know anything about this that I know of, but he would just be elated with it. And he deserves it. I truly believe that he deserves it. It's been for all the right reasons. It's never been about him, it's always been about the kids, and so I think as a community we should reward that when we have somebody that does something exceptional. So, and there was some talk I looked at the signage at Bain Park with the Raffadal, I think it's the Raffadal signage for the Pony League field. I don't see any reason why it would be any different over there for that. I think there was some question about that, the signage.
Yeah, and with that, Kim actually reminded us that we were moving Don Duda Field over to Bain Park, which then basically names all those fields, and so that's why JC's came up as.
Yeah, and he's done plenty there as well, so I mean, it would be just as fitting. And his last, he did Mustang and Bronco probably more than any. His last, the last portion of his umpiring career, so that would be fitting. I think the Bronco field. But, he definitely was. A lot of kids would, oh, Jonesy, we got Jonesy tonight. That's awesome, So I'll leave it at that. I think it would be a good idea for us to do this.
Any other comments? Mr. Badeau, please.
Yeah, I will second basically everything that Troy said. Growing up, Jonesy was a character. I would even say that, a character of our baseball careers. So it was always fun to have him there, and then it was good to see him still umping when my kid came through. So, he's been around forever, and at least my generation knows him very well.
Thank you.
I think another option too, I mean, we've done a plaque for Bonnie Cumberland, we've done a plaque for Mike Paget at the Warming House in Gregory Park. This might be a really cool opportunity to tell his story, another option also on a plaque at JC's or even at Bain, because there's no park to name, but maybe just some history there at the park, an option.
Yeah. And Troy, if we do this, we want to have some kind of an announcement and make an event out of it, I'm assuming?
I think so. I would love to do that and invite him there for that. And invite the press, and we'll bring plenty of Kleenex because he will have a hard time with this. He'll be eternally grateful, but he'll be emotionally struggle with it, and for good reason. I mean, like I said, he's always poured his heart and soul into this, and I don't see any difference for something like this.
So you guys have kind of the direction you need on the signage. Troy, do you feel like organizing or kind of getting the ball rolling with the event is something that you could help with, or who would we like?
I can certainly help with anything that you might need help with. So.
Or do we want staff to do this, or what are we thinking here?
Well, I'm not gonna make the sign.
Right. I mean, as far,
Yeah.
I mean, as far as organizing the event, getting the dates and that kind of thing.
And those crayons.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to see it happen during the summer, during baseball season.
Like the All-Star game, I think.
That would be
Oh.
awesome, which, you know, we have to work on yet, but, that'd be cool. Yeah. And so, yeah, let me,
Should we set that as a soft tentative date as kind of the All-Star game
Yeah.
somewhere in there?
yep.
Okay. Paul,
Is
Here.
he well enough to come? Like, I don't know, you said he
We'll get him
wasn't
there.
doing well, but, okay,
Yeah,
okay, so he would be able to,
we'll get
there's
him.
not like a timeline or anything like
I'll
that?
bring him if I have to.
Okay, throw him over your shoulder.
Yeah. He lives across the street, so.
Oh, okay, okay.
And whether we do it at JC's or Bain or whatever, that doesn't belittle JC's name, does it by chance?
No, it would just be the field, right? Or is it going to be called the Jonesy Park now?
No, just the
Right.
field.
Just the
Yeah.
field
Just the
itself.
field.
Okay,
Just
just
the
wanna make sure.
Bronco field.
I think the JCs would probably be behind that, supporting,
Correct.
I can't speak for them.
all right. Very good. We're going to move on to item number 9. This is our public forum. This is a chance for allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda. I'm not sure that we have anyone, but I'm going to open it if we do right now at 5:11. And seeing no one, we will close the forum at 5:11. City admin report, item number 10, please. No, we have no city admin.
She didn't have anything.
Very
She
good.
said she was at another meeting, so.
Item number 11, city engineer and rec coordinator report. Looks like we're going to go with Katie first.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, thank you, members of the board. Recreation update, just wanted to get you the league totals for this year. So we ended up combining co-ed softball, so that's been a process trying to figure out a way to keep the skill level somewhat fair throughout the night. So that's been kind of going on in the softball community. Everything started last week, so we're going into our second week of ball. So it's been really great, except for the blocking of the road, but otherwise pretty good. As far as some Gregory Park pergola community activities, the dojo in the park, I know I've posted on social media about that. It's free opportunity every Saturday at 2 p.m., all abilities, family, children. So that's a really cool opportunity, 2 to 4 p.m. throughout the summer. And then also yoga in the park. Jessica Monroe will be teaching yoga in the park every Saturday, 9 to 10 a.m. For $10, and you just pay her. And yeah, I'll be advertising that through our social media, hopefully on a weekly basis. Community Ed and YMCA update. We have most of the game schedules in the system, just following up a little bit with Community Ed on solidifying that. And then JC's Park is a place where we actually decided, a conversation with the YMCA, myself and Paul Sandy, that they would like to host all of their programming in JC's Park in that grass area. And so staff, myself and Paul have been kind of working on how we get that grass area up to snuff and not really a liability issue over there. So we're leveling it out a little bit and making sure we have it ready to go by June 7th. So yeah, we've purchased some temporary backstops that will work for their T-ball program. And then, and just an add-on, they were originally going to be running the T-ball at Gustafson Park, and they had a couple reasons why they didn't want to run it there anymore. And I was to bring it up to you guys. This might be an opportunity to rethink the vision for Gustafson Park. And Kevin, I think you wanted to touch on that a little bit before I continue.
Nope, I'll jump in with the board reports at the end.
Okay.
But we'll save it till then.
Okay, very good. Special event update. Last Saturday was the fishing clinic. It went really well. The weather wasn't too bad. We thought it was going to be 84 and just deathly, but we actually got some cloud cover for a while. So 50 children were there, and then we had probably 100 parents and volunteers total. So they got a lot of good reps, great learning stations. They left with their participant bags and a lot of smiles. And actually, due to the weather, a lot of kids caught a lot of fish.
Fish, that was awesome.
Yeah, it was, I think a girl, age 6, caught a 15.25-inch largemouth bass. So it was exciting for that little girl. You know, she's probably going to fish the rest of her life. So that's what it's all about, is teaching and instilling the fishing hobby the rest of their life. So it went really well. Concessions update, we did add ice cream treats to the mix. So we'll have ice cream at Memorial Park as well as Bain this summer. And I think I touched on this earlier today in the agenda. I just listed off some observations and some facts that the CLC students presented to me several weeks ago, but it was regarding things that they picked up, trends they were seeing, and then just some data on maybe potentially changing some things. So that went really well. Good connection. We'll probably continue to do that activity similar to that each year. With partnering that way. And then lastly, the grant water bottle filler. We did receive the water bottle filler, and we're currently working with a licensed plumber on getting that installed, but we don't have an exact date of when that's going to be installed quite yet. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Katie. Any questions for Katie? We're good? All right, awesome. Paul?
All right, mine is pretty quick and simple. You guys might have seen that some of the spring cleanup we've been doing. Most recently this week, we remulched all of College Drive, which was a big task. And with the parks guys being really busy on fields and things, we dedicated our whole public works staff to go and mulch all those roundabouts. And it looks very, very nice. So we're still working on mulching. It will be Gregory in the dog park next. Like I kind of said, we haven't gotten our Stump Grinder yet, so if you're wondering why nothing's been taken care of there, we're waiting on the supplier to give us our piece of equipment. Under the capital and operational budget, so I sat down with Chair Yeager here last week, and we started putting pen to paper and trying to put together at least kind of a 0 to 10 year capital budget. And what we're kind of looking to do is set up not only a second design standard workshop, but also a budget workshop with you all. We figured we would start the process by at least putting in some ballpark numbers of what things are going to cost based on the park surveys, based on kind of our building remodel needs, that kind of thing. Kind of putting them where we think they make sense, getting it all to you, and then having a budget workshop to go over that capital plan first so that we could solidify that for the next 10 years. And then from there, we would start working on operations, which is a little easier because we have the data to kind of back up what we've needed in the past for maintenance from an operational standpoint. So, but the capital budget's really the one that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort. So Kevin and I have gotten a start on that. When we sat down, both at our design standard workshop, we thought that the next design standard workshop would be like June 8th, which is basically 2 weeks from now. That's 1 month from our previous one that we thought would give WIDSEF enough time to come with something of a draft or a start on it. And then our budget workshop, we were thinking the next month in between our regular park board meetings on like a July 6th. So it's basically, we would be meeting every 2 weeks for a while, both from park board, design standard, park board, budget workshop, park board, on a kind of a 2 week rotation, if that's okay with everyone, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Sandy. And I'll just jump in with what Paul and I have been working on is, you're going to love this. We're going to come back to you. We're going to have ready laid out basically a 10-year budget that'll be broken apart not only by what our capital goals are by year, but also we're going to break it down by park. So you can see what work is going to be done in each park by year. And it's basically all of our evaluation stuff, guys. So it's the beach, it's all the big ticket items, and then we'll get it in front of all of us, and we can all talk about it together in kind of a whiteboard type meeting. Move this from here, let's move that from 2025 to 2024, whatever, and get everybody talking about it, make sure we're on the same page, so that when we go to present this in front of the council, we have a clear vision of what we're doing as far as new projects, deferred maintenance, and so forth, and I can speak on behalf of this board intelligently, and we can put it in front of the council and say, this is not what we think we need, this is what we know we need, this is our vision, this is what's gonna take to do it, this is what we need. So I need your guys' help to just help me craft that budget into a document that is forward-thinking for the next 10 years. Mr. Bedell, I knew you were gonna wanna say something.
Oh,
about
yes.
this.
I've been asked by the Personnel and Finance Committee to just give you a heads up that we will be tightening our belts again this year. So as we're going through this, keep mindful of, well, are there things we can push back? Are there things that we can move? Because it's going to be an interesting one. Their goal is to be very, very stiff on taxes this year, so.
Very good, thank you.
That's not a fun tease.
Yeah.
0% increase. Maybe -2 this year.
Anything else, Mr. Sandy?
Just as part of the report, included what I have in the past with our monthly maintenance task completed. I included a little snippet about the groundbreaking that you all attended. And also, we went over the Memorial Park construction a little bit earlier, so that's really all I have.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, we're going to move on to 11.5. This is our board reports and comments. So anybody who wants to chime in with anything, now's the time. You can as well, Mr. Mayor. All right, we'll give you last. Would you like last? All right. Anything, Tim?
Nothing other than if we have to backtrack to, it's probably coming up, I'm guessing, for Paul, about Greg Roberts' salary?
That was part of the.
Consent.
That was part of the consent calendar.
Part of it,
Yep,
okay,
we're
perfect.
good.
Want to make sure.
Yep. Mr. Rushmeyer, anything?
A few things, yep. First of all, been out, my wife and I have been out walking the trails, especially Rotary Park, Buffalo Hills, and fantastic. I mean, I had to coerce my wife to stay the one day because she was sure a black bear was approaching us. It just happened to be a very really noisy squirrel. But,
Had a big S on his chest.
so, now I've been bringing a stick with a metal poker on the end of it. But, no, it's fantastic. It's exciting to think about what that Rotary Park can become. And,
Awesome.
So, it's just excellent. But I'll give feedback on the meeting that the BBBA had with the community ed regarding the field fees moving forward that they increased this year. We met, it was the varsity coach, Trent Graham's, the 10th grade baseball coach, Derek Owen, who was also a board member with the BBBA, myself, and Steve Hansen, who was also a co-chair. And Corey Reynolds and Jennifer Russian represented the school district and Baxter. And they shared why they did what they did, and shared that they did send out 3 emails over the last year explaining why they were doing what they were doing. And I apologized and said, didn't read them. It wasn't baseball season, so I wasn't real concerned and apologized. And so they just said, we're just trying to recoup some costs. The school district's trying to recoup some costs. And I did share with them, this doesn't fit with what we did this year, because we also had staff come to the park board and asked about field fees, usage fees for games and practices. And I explained that we've basically put a moratorium on it for this year, with the exception of the tournaments, in lieu of looking at other ways we can recoup some of that cost and not necessarily damage what what funds are available for the youth to be able to use those fields. I brought up that we also are allowing the school district to use the tennis courts, the hockey rinks, and, you know, and basically said, we don't want to play this game. Nobody wins if we start playing this game where you're charging and then we're charging. You know, the high school used Mills Field and the girls softball fields all spring for their freshman softball team and their sophomore baseball team. If we were to charge what they're asking to charge, it would have been substantial. And I didn't say, I just said, we don't want to do that, but we, basically, long story short, we also explained to Corey that baseball is a little bit different in the fact summer ball is, you know, even softball. I don't know how much girls softball do this, but the kids put a lot of sweat into the fields after practices. They drag the fields, you know, they work the mound. There's a lot of sweat put back into the fields all summer long, and it teaches them, you know, that to be responsible for what they're using. And so basically, long story short, we asked Corey to go back to the school district at their next board meeting on June 8th and ask them to copy what we have decided to do through this summer. And if they needed to, because she didn't know, they didn't have a cost either. And she's like, you know, we just kind of, you know, they did some research, but she's like, I don't know where we're really at. And so we asked that they go back and talk to the board and see if they could do the same thing that we are doing this summer, and we'll see what happens. And you know, I'm hoping for a good outcome there. And any questions from anyone on that? The other thing is, because of we don't know for our tournaments this summer, we wanted to use some Baxter fields as well to split it up for several reasons. One is that we get baseball being played in both communities. It is Brainerd Baxter Baseball Association. Two, it gives us more leeway. We can start games later in the day. It gives us more leeway if we have rainouts. We have a lot more fields to go from if we need to, instead of just saying automatically we have to cut all of our games to an hour and 15 minutes. If we have 6 fields to play on, we can still keep our game links. It just gives us so many more options. But in lieu of not knowing what kind of fee there may be from Baxter through Community Ed and the school district, and we just had a meeting last night, a board meeting last night, a special board meeting about this, and I informed them. I said, listen, the Brainerd staff needs to know what fields we're using. You know, we can't wait until, you know, the last minute to say we're gonna use Brainerd and JC's. However, we did decide last night to continue with Brainerd and JC's for sure for the 12-year-olds, which would be the pony fields.
Okay.
And my guess is it's probably also some for the 10, which would be the Bronco fields also. Only one game on Friday, so I don't know that we'll need any concessions. I mean, we're talking one game. I don't know if it'd be worth setting up or not, but my thought is no, that it's not. But and then I think there's a meeting with Baxter, the city administrator, tomorrow. He couldn't be at our meeting the previous week with Corey from Community Ed and Jennifer Russian. So I informed Steve to please try to make sure this happens this week, like tomorrow. He's saying, well, maybe we won't know until next week, and I'm pushing hard that we get this figured out right away. So are you guys okay if we don't know for sure until next week? We for sure need Brainerd and JC's, this first tournament, the whole weekend.
Yeah, no, it's a staffing, that's the only cost that you guys really have is
Right,
paying for the
right.
staff. And we agreed upon, I believe, one ballpark groomer per park.
Yes.
I don't know if you want an additional one or you were providing a volunteer.
No, I think one per park, and our thought was there'll be enough dads there that if we're running behind and we need someone to grab rakes and work the baselines, we can make that happen. So, you know, if that one person is getting stretched, we'll fill in the gaps. The association will fill in the gaps. And so kind of the unknown is how many games are gonna be played out at, OK Park in Baxter. So I'll just look for updates daily and, I'll let you know as soon as I know stuff. And we'll push for sooner rather than later on that. I think there was something else. Oh, there was something else. We're doing a bunch of goodie bags. But apparently they're having trouble finding goodie bags. You guys have a bunch of bags that are just sitting in boxes somewhere that, I mean, we'd even purchase them from you if we had to.
Dave?
Contact Cub Foods.
Cub Foods?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cub Foods will typically give you a box of bags.
Maybe even visit Brainerd potentially?
Well, I think in the meantime, they're gonna reach out to some of our sponsors.
Okay.
That, I mean, one of our sponsors might have, that might be their donation. You know, some will put coupons in there and whatnot, but, we'll figure it out. Okay, that's all I got.
Thank you, appreciate it, and thanks for doing that for the board, you know, for reaching out and cultivating that dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's,
Kara, anything? All right, I'll go next, and I'll leave it for the mayor for the closing arguments. The only thing I want to say is, yeah, we're working. Paul and I have been working on the budget. I think you guys will be really excited about what you see there. It'll be easy to navigate, and will be really quick and easy. I'm going to hope that we can set up maybe like a doodle poll to see just what days and times are working, but you'll see that coming out. And Ms. Sandy briefly mentioned this, but about Gustafson, this came up in our discussions, in our budget discussions. If you'll remember, when we did our evaluations, we all kind of said the same thing. What should we do with this park? So I would just like to ask you guys to maybe just drive by it one more time before our next meeting and come back with maybe a couple ideas on just what we think we could do, you know, even if it's 10 years out, or what that long-term vision should be for that park. So, little park over there in Northeast. So if you guys could all do that, that'd be great, and you know, something for us to think about on the budget moving forward. Katie, please.
I just wanted to also mention, if you guys remember in our design standard meeting, that WSN mentioned this QR code, see what the public wants. I really liked that idea. I mean, we can go with what you guys want, but I also think, what does the public need? We need to consider.
Yeah, we could put up a sign there. What would you like to see in this park? And might be able to do it. So
That and O'Brien too.
Yep.
Another good candidate.
O'Brien is another good one. Yeah. So it's our chance to dream a little bit here with these parks. So if you guys could come back with something, that'd be great. Just some ideas, just to kick around. You know, big, little, everything in between. Other than that, I will say that I don't know if anybody has noticed, but our parks are full of a lot of pollen, but they're really full of kids and people lately. The parks have been absolutely jam-packed. St. Francis has been over there. When they're over there, it is like a billion kids running around. Kiwanis has been packed basically every single day. So kudos to everyone for full parks and getting used. So get out and enjoy them. And with that, okay, pampara.
Oh my gosh. First of all, just again to follow up with what Troy said. Two things. One, my son is in pony baseball this year. They had 5 teams show up for that age group from the Brainerd Baxter area, which is fantastic. So much so that they were kind of surprised by that. That's great. I was a little concerned about that. I think there are 6 teams from the outlying cities as well, which that should be an interesting group. The one thing that was mentioned by a couple people is our bases are set up at 80 feet as opposed to 90. And I don't know if that's a question that the park board wants to address at some point or look at.
I think they're 75.
Is it 75 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
They are different than Baxter's, and I think what we'd like to do is look at for both parks and is putting in some sleeves so that we can adjust accordingly. So if it's a
Sure.
tournament that Maya says have to be 70-foot bases, that we can move bases to be 70 foot. So if we have 16 teams for both age groups, because we have access to all these fields, you know, where we would have a 10U and a 12U with 16 teams, that we could move fields around in their park and or our park as far as base links and pitching mounds to accommodate that. It's just more flexibility and then allows us to get more people into our community, and that's a win-win for both communities. So,
Yeah, and my comment on it was that now that we've kind of opened this up a little bit, I think one of the discussions you guys have had on a regular basis is about usage and just making sure that our stuff is getting used. So I think that if that's the case, I wasn't aware, you know, and as soon as it came up, I said, oh, I've never even thought of that. Those are just things that I think we should be looking at and just seeing what are the possibilities for us to be able to get them to be used more. Specifically, all of the traveling baseball team for the 14U has requested that they play all of their games in Mills Stadium. So I just want to pass that on as well. My son approached me and said, everyone on the team had told me that we're supposed to tell you that we only want to play in Mills Stadium. So that request has been made.
yeah, when we have
The request has been passed.
when we have the 14U tournaments there, you know, I would watch kids and coaches' reaction when they walk into that ball field, and you know, some of them just be jaw dropping. They'd be like, "Oh, this is so cool." But the other thing I wanted to share, and I forgot about, is during that meeting with the community ed, our association, the BBVA Association, received $1,600 worth of baseballs, good quality baseballs, and 30 baseball buckets from Dick's Sporting Goods. We had already purchased our balls for the season, and we turned around and gave 30 dozen baseballs to community ed, and I think 2 buckets per team, or 30 buckets as well, and just donated them to community ed for the youth rec programs. And you know, so that's the kind of thing, the mindset that we have is like, you know what, we're all in this together. What can we all do with both communities, park boards, community ed, ISD, to make this a great experience for everyone involved? And you know, we could have held on to those baseballs and said, no, we're going to keep these for years. And we're like, no, let's. And it was Steve Hansen's idea, and the whole board agreed. It's like, yes, let's give it to community ed. They're high quality baseballs, and you know, it saves them $1,000. It was over $1,000 that we just turned around and donated back to community ed.
My follow-up to that was, whilst practicing at Bain Park with my son, we ran into coaches from the Brainerd Bees, the amateur team, as well as the VFW, who I essentially just asked them, you know, where are you guys playing your games? What are you doing for practice? And they had mentioned the same concern that we've had about the high school and community ed's pricing on things. Essentially, they're being priced off of the fields, and so they're trying to figure out where to go. And my comment was, you know, we're trying to get people back on our field, specifically Mills Stadium. We're trying to get usage out of that. And so I had directed them towards Kevin Yeager, and I don't know if that conversation happened or not, but an interest in from them in coming back to our baseball fields, essentially because at some point we kind of lost them in a similar type of scenario. So I think we just need to be careful of those conversations and make sure that we're trying to figure out ways to make it work. One of the things they had said was the usage of the equipment in order to maintain it. We should be trying to find ways of making that work, whether or not that's, you know, a fee for the year that's just a solid one-time fee that allows us to get them on our insurance or something along those lines. So, but good conversations, and it was good to see usage of our fields and hear positive things. So I just think moving forward as we look at this stuff, we've got that stadium, we're questioning what the goal is with it, and people want to use it. So let's get them in there as much as humanly possible.
Absolutely. The decision on what to do with it will be much easier if it's getting used regularly, for sure, so.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anything else?
Just, do we have any new additions that we're going to be hiring or allowing for a park board member?
Not at this time. So typically what I like to do is leave it open for a little while, a couple meetings, so that we can announce it at the city council meetings. I believe we've received one application, and so hopefully we'll make that decision at maybe the next meeting. When is the next meeting? It's a couple weeks, isn't it? Yeah, so potentially, yep. So.
I just want to make sure, because the travel season's not far away. Anything after Labor Day, I want to make sure there's going to be a quorum here, so.
But that's a good point. If you are out there and you are interested in partaking in the park board, please get your application in at the city's website. You can pull up that application, and then I get to look at that application and make a recommendation. So you got to wine and dine me. You got to look good. You got to look real good on that application.
Another teaser.
And then the city council will make that.
Took me 11 years to get in.
That's right. The city council will make that final decision.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? That's it. We're looking for a motion to adjourn, guys. Good meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
So moved, adjourned.
We don't have a date yet.
Dates we're gonna have to advertise for.
We have a date, not really a time, so we're fuzzy, so.
That was a recommendation, but.
We don't have it confirmed
If we have consensus here, we can, that works for everyone. We don't have to
Oh.
set out.
I'll make it work.
June 8th, that is next 2 weeks from today. I can be there.
I can also be there.
We got 2. We got 3, we got a quorum, so. You can be there, Tim?
No, I'll be in Ohio.
Okay.
So let's just adjourn to it then. We're good with that one. I can
You
set
okay
it
with
out
that?
for the budget workshop.
Please, yes. I don't care. I'll be drunk in Ohio. What do I care?
All right, so we're going to be looking for a motion to adjourn to the June 8th Design Standard Meeting.
So moved? Wait, we have to, yeah, okay.
4 o'clock, I believe, right? We have a motion, I think original motion was by Tim.
I'll disregard that.
Okay, we have so we have a motion by Kara and a second by, we have a second by Rushmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, guys.